Now the New York Times and others have acknowledged that the laptop and its contents were indeed real. Here to discuss the fallout, as well as some of President Biden's approval numbers, we have President of Convention of States, Mark Meckler. Mark Meckler, Convention of States, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Good to be with you.
Mark, there was much ado when it came to the Biden family's business ties to Ukraine and China in the run-up to the 2020 election, yet very little fanfare in the media. You just recently conducted a poll, and 65% of independents say that Biden's ties to Ukraine present a conflict of interest. What should we make of this?
Well, I think it is a conflict of interest, and what we should really make of it is it's interesting that the American people are ahead of the curve and ahead of the news media, as always. And I have a lot of respect for the American people, and one of the reasons we poll is to see what they think, because I think that tells us, generally speaking, what's true. Biden does have a conflict of interest in regard to Ukraine, and the American people know it.
Now, 65% is an overwhelming majority, despite the media blackout that took place on social media and traditional media on this issue. What do you make of the Biden family's ties to the CCP, and how do you think that all plays into the bigger picture?
Well, I think it's pretty clear after decades of Hunter Biden profiting off his father's name, off of emails from Hunter Biden's laptop that refer to percentages being reserved for the big guy, that in regard to Ukraine and in regard to the CCP, that President Biden is heavily conflicted. He's probably the most conflicted president in modern U.S. American history. And again, I think the American people are very aware of this, despite the media's best attempts to obfuscate.
Now, let me preface this next question first and say I'm by no means defending the actions of Vladimir Putin, but I do find it interesting that President Biden is willing to demonize Vladimir Putin to such an extent, even calling him a butcher. Meanwhile, you have a Chinese Communist Party who's guilty of at least 3 genocides. They cut open the chests of living religious prisoners of conscience for their organs. Literally state-run military hospitals conducting live organ harvesting. Where are the preemptive measures for the CCP?
Yeah, I think President Biden and frankly his whole party and the left wing in American politics is really absent on the CCP. I think they like the cheap cost of Chinese goods. I think they like the easy cash that flows from the CCP to consultants and politicians and powerful people. And so I think they're afraid to speak out against the CCP. And frankly, what I think is happening is we're seeing the selling of the soul of America to the CCP, according to a well-laid plan by the CCP. And I think Biden's at the top of that pyramid.
That leads me to my next question, Mark, which is, what do you think it's going to take? I mean, is it an excuse that so many more powerful people from the U.S. are so heavily vested in China to turn a blind eye?
I don't think it's an excuse, but I do think it's the reason. And what I think it's going to take is the American people rising up. It's going to take bold political leadership. We had some of that from President Trump calling out the CCP for the evil dictatorship that it is. But it's also going to take a willingness from the American people to sacrifice. We have cheap goods and easy money from China, and that's going to have to stop. And in order to make that stop, prices are going to go up here in the U.S. We're going to have to sacrifice, and we're going to need politicians who are honest about that.
Mark Meckler, Convention of States, thank you.
Thank you. I'm here live in Philadelphia at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. When you hear the phrase lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, these are the folks we should think of, those who anonymously gave their lives. Well, today you have a chance to volunteer. You need to volunteer for conventionofstates.com, the movement that's going to save the country. These folks are willing to step up and give everything. We need you to give just a little bit. Go to conventionofstates.com and volunteer today.